I'm probably going to go at least until 5. I could probably do 2 hours on this, so we'll see how it goes. So if you've got to bug out early, don't worry about it. It won't hurt my feelings. I'm just going to go until I'm done. So somewhere between an hour and a half, hour, 45 minutes. So again, we're going to do termite inspections, home inspections, and natural hazard disclosure inspections. We might touch a little bit on septic certs and roof certs and that sort of stuff. But basically what I've got 2 different home inspection reports that I pulled. These are a little old, but basically they look the same. Not a whole heck of a lot has changed in the home inspection world. You know, in the sense this is, 8-year-old report, but so be it. And let me just jump, which by the way, maybe actually some stuff has changed probably rather dramatically. And the main thing probably being is a lot of the guys going out today are basically going out with tablets that have nice built-in software. They're just hitting the things, looks in good condition, bad condition, poor condition, taking pictures, loading them into the thing. But generally speaking, first of all, let's go back to our contract. Okay, the default in the contract is 17 days to do your property inspections, right? Mm-hmm. This is one of them. Okay. Now the vast majority of transactions that I see, the buyers are choosing not to get a home inspection. Vast majority. Okay. Most of them are either doing it themselves, or they just don't feel it's necessary to go to that point, or they've done enough of inspection themselves that they don't think it's necessary to go to the trouble and the expense of getting a home inspection. All of which may be fine as a standard policy and rule within this company and within your business. You never want to recommend to a client not to get a home inspection. Okay? It's exactly the opposite. You want to recommend that they get a home inspection. Okay? Now, if they choose not to, so be it. Now, you say, well, why would I recommend that they don't get a home inspection? Well, the house is brand new. It's 2 years old. No sense in spending $300-400 for a home inspection. No need. You never want those words to cross your lips. Okay? For obvious reasons. You now have told a client, no need to get a home inspection. The house is brand new. And then, of course, what happens? They move in, there's something defective on the air conditioner, or the roof is leaking, or God knows what it is. So it doesn't matter how old or how new the property is. You definitely want to make sure we get a home inspection done. You're always going to get disclosures on the home inspection. As what was the weather like when I did the inspection? Was it sunny? Was it raining? These home inspectors are obviously looking to cover themselves. In this particular day, the weather conditions during the inspection were partly cloudy, 70 to 80 degrees, and the ground was dry. Okay? There's a reason they put that on there. Okay? The temperature, was it raining? What was going on? They're obviously looking to cover themselves from a legal and a liability standpoint. I'm just going to page down through this. This gives you a description of the property, just a general description, which, by the way, most home inspectors, matter of fact, I would suggest all home inspectors, are not measuring square footage. Okay? You can't count, they're not going out and measuring. Normally the only person going out there running a tape measure around the house is an appraiser. Okay? And frankly, I recommend that you do not, as realtors, agents representing the buyer or seller, there's really no reason. I've done it, and you probably will do it again, and it's not a bad idea to learn how to tape a house and figure out what the square footage is, but you don't want to be the responsible party that says, this house is...
your cell phone.
I left that with you. Thank you, son.
You didn't say anything about it.
Well, I just assumed. So, anyway, you don't want to be the one that goes out and says, hey, I taped it, the house is 1,340 square feet, and have people rely on that. If you do get yourself in a situation, for whatever reason, and there's going to be situations where you're going to need to tape, something's amiss, The seller tells you that the house is 2,000 square feet. The tax rolls say the house is 1,000 square feet. You're eyeballing it based upon your experience, and you're like, both of these are wrong. It looks like about 1,500 square feet. Fine. Go ahead and tape it, but you are not to pass that information along as reliable. And if you do pass it along, you want it to pass it on as unreliable. I'm not an expert tape measurer when it comes to figure out the square footage of a property. So anyway, they're not going to tape it either. Foundation types, is it on a slab, is it above grade? By the way, the more experience you folks have as it relates to construction type and any sort of contracting background, it will help you tremendously in your real estate career, okay? If you don't know the difference between a slab on grade or a raised foundation, you could be at a little bit of a disadvantage, okay? A slab on grade is this building. This building is a slab on grade. Slab foundation at grade level. Grade level meaning where the ground comes to the property, okay? Property on a raised foundation, normally talking about how crawl space is underneath, okay? If it's a super raised foundation, you could have a basement, okay? Basement is nothing more than a large crawl space, okay? So, and knowing those type of terms and what you're talking about with all of these inspections helps a lot. We're going to talk about termites in a little bit. I'm going to give you guys a lesson on termites. Drywood termites, subterranean termites, where they live, what they do, what they eat, how fast they move, how you treat them. All this information is going to help you stand above in your client's eyes. Having said that, if you are projecting yourself as the expert, you need to be careful of that as well. So if you do have a huge contracting background and you're going in and pointing things out left, right, and sideways, and that's this and that's this, better be careful, because now you may be putting yourself in the position of an expert, and your client, if your client is relying on your expertise. I have a general contractor's license. Ouch. Okay? That's a problem. Okay? You talk about a duty to disclose. I'm representing a buyer or a seller in a transaction. Even though I'm not representing them as a general contractor, I have a general contractor's license. My duty to disclose is way higher than an average person who doesn't have a general contractor's license. So, at any rate, the more the knowledge you get, the better with this. Okay, we've got, the utilities on. By the way, if you're a listing agent or buyer's agent, save yourself headaches. I can't tell you how many times I have clients order inspections only to get out there and there's no utilities on. Do your homework. Make sure before you're sending your people out there, you've got the utilities going. Okay? Who's in the property? In this particular case, the people that were present were the buyer's agent and the clients. Who is the client on this? Is it the seller or the buyer? Buyer. Okay, now it could be the seller. Client traditionally is the person who ordered the report, who's paying for it. Okay? But in most cases, the person who's requesting, even if they're not paying for it, it's possible that the seller paid for this, but it was ordered by the buyer. Another very important distinction. If you are, suppose you're the listing agent, you're representing a buyer, or the listing agent representing the seller. You have agreed through the negotiations, the buyer is going to get a home inspection, and the seller is going to pay for the home inspection. Is that possible? Is that normal? Well, I don't know whether it's normal or not, but it's certainly within the realm of possibilities. Awesome. Seller has agreed to pay for the cost of a home inspection not to exceed $500. Okay. Even if the seller is paying for it, some sellers like it. Well, if I'm paying for it, I want them to use ABC Home Inspection Company. Danger, danger, danger. Let the buyer pick. You don't want the seller picking your home. Why? It's obvious, right? Home inspector misses something. Well, who picked the home inspector? Who's now trying to cover something up because they made us use the ABC Home Inspection Company? Let the buyer pick. And by the way, it is a very good idea. Could be dangerous, but generally speaking, you're going to have a home inspection done. You're representing the buyer. You should be there, and your buyer should be there. And the reason for that, and again, sometimes this could backfire, when the home inspector goes through and starts putting stuff on the report, when a buyer reads something and it says the ABC is defective, okay, that may just send them into the outer space. If they're standing there with the home inspector looking at ABC is defective, and maybe it's a real minor, minimal thing, the home inspector could then explain to them what the defect is and what the problem is. That, in theory, could take what is a misunderstanding on the buyer's side and just, oh, okay, well, yeah, he told us about that. Not a big deal, okay? So if you can get him there, I personally think that's always going to be the best. Okay, this property was occupied at the time. Access to items such as electrical outlets, receptacles, windows, so on and so forth may have been restricted. Again, this is a nice little get-out-of-jail-free card for the home inspector. In theory, the home inspector has a tester and is testing every single receptacle and every single switch throughout the entire property. Okay? If one of them is bad, they may use this as say, hey, well, we couldn't get to that one because it was behind the couch. Okay? So they're just saying that the property is occupied. Same thing if there's stuff in the garage on the termite inspection and such. I wonder if this stuff finished copying. Let me see if this finished copying. If it did, This will move a lot faster on my desktop. Not much better. Okay, here's the same report. Now we can move a little faster. Okay, introductory notes. Who inspected it? Tom Turpin inspected it. He is a member of the Certified Real Estate Inspectors Association. Woohoo! Okay? Big deal. All right? Kind of like with the mold inspectors, stuff's a dime a dozen. Introductory notes. Basically, by the way, I'm not going to read this entire report. We're just going to kind of go through it. It's basically going to give you some ideas of what they're doing. They've taken some photos. We've got the weather. We've got some, what do we have here? Some environmental concerns. Are there issues with the environment? It makes reference to some of our basic disclosures that we use, earthquake safety, lead-based paint, so on and so forth. By the way, they're not going to go out and take soil samples. You know, they're not going to see if the ground's contaminated. They don't normally test for argon. They don't normally test paint for lead-based paint. They don't normally do any of that sort of stuff. Those are separate inspections. Now, they may look at a property and see that this house was built in 1955 and see peeling paint up on the fascia, which appears to be original, and they may make reference to, we don't know, but this house certainly has the possibility of having lead-based paint. But they're not normally going to inspect that stuff. Okay, this particular report is broken down with different codes. If it's a safety concern, it's SC. If it needs further evaluation, which you always hate, whenever you have your home inspectors say it needs further evaluation, what are they saying? Get another expert out here. Get somebody else out here. This is beyond my scope of expertise. Corrections recommended. Any of these three, quite honestly, are going to be problematic, potentially. It's a safety problem. Wires are hanging out of the wall. Do buyers normally want that done? Yeah. Okay. Further evaluation. The toilets seem to flush slow. Property's on a septic. You know, I've been told it's never been pumped. That needs further evaluation in the form of what? Septic inspection, septic pump. Corrections recommended. This is the inspector telling the buyer, whatever this is, you need to fix it. Maybe it's not a safety concern, but we recommend that you fix the leaky faucet in the back bathroom. Okay? And then recommended upgrades, that could be all sorts of things. The insulation in the attic is, you know, R1, if there is such a thing. R1 would be a very, very low resistance in insulation. Okay? So they very well may say the insulation, we recommend you. When buyers see these sort of things, what do they think? My house is substandard, I got to get it upgraded. So this particular inspector has his little report that goes along those ways. Serviceable. Again, this is his definition. Serviceable, and again, they're literally defining. Serviceable is defined as, it can be of service, yada, yada, yada. Functioned as defined as by the CREAS and the ASHI. Performing its normal operation. Okay, failed, pretty obvious. Specialist, you better get somebody out here who knows what they're doing, because I don't. Close of escrow. It's interesting. What does this guy got here? Okay, this particular report, this guy's telling you right now, if it has any of these codes, we recommend you do it prior to close of escrow. That's pretty brazen, I think. Okay? I don't know why the home inspector would have any input on what we do or do not do before close of escrow. I don't know that that's their job. You've already said it's a safety concern. You've already said you don't know what you're doing. We need further evaluation. You've already said that you recommend corrections or upgrades. Now, who are you to say this has to be done prior to close of escrow? This is why there's traditionally a little bit of an angst between a home inspection company and a real estate agent. Because even though all these things may need to be done and they may be valid, that's for the buyer to decide whether or not these need to be done prior to close of escrow. Okay? So, at any rate, that's what they've said on this one. They've broken their report down into foundation and floors. Okay, again, they're going to describe, so we're starting to get into the meat of the report. The type of the foundation on this is concrete slab on grade. Slab construction basically on grade. Bolting or bracing. Wall surface, by the way, how do these walls get attached to the slab? They get bolted. Okay? Normally, You got bolts coming out of the slab, the sill is bolted to the slab, and then the walls are framed from the sill. It's bolted down there. So this guy must, normally, how do you even know that? In most cases, you're going to go in the garage. Go in your garage. Most of your garages are not completely drywalled in. Look at the floor. You're going to see the concrete slab if you have a concrete slab. You're going to see a sill and you're going to see bolts come on there. That's what the inspector does. They're not tearing apart any drywall in the house. There's nothing on the house that's going to show them that this property has been bolted down. Slab on grade. The visible exterior areas of the concrete foundation show no signs of usual cracking. Do we have any of these? We don't have any more of those sticky note things? Oh, we do. Let's do a little bit of diagram here. Okay, let me go get a pen.
You pen?
I didn't sharpie you. Sharpie.
Oh no, it's not pen.
That one. Yeah, I'll take it. That's good enough. Okay, I know this is off camera, so just trust me if you're watching this video. Okay, so we're going to take a profile of our house. Here's the dirt. Here's our slab. Here's our walls. Here's a bolt coming up, bolting the 2x4 to the floor to the wall. This is grade. So whenever you hear them talking about grade level, that's grade level. Okay. This is saying that the foundation, or did I already pass that part? Concrete slab on grade. That's good. Concrete slab below grade is bad. Basically, we've got the dirt above the slab. Not so good. Okay? Normally, they're going to have some sort of a problem there. You don't want your dirt, for whatever reason, it's been piled up, they were doing some gardening, they poured a patio slab in the back, they took the extra dirt, they just pushed it onto the side of the house. If they pushed all this dirt on the side of the house above the foundation line, you're going to have a problem. The home inspector will call that out, and he'll probably say, further investigation by who? Who wants to investigate this? Where do termites live? Termites live in two places. They live in the ground, and they also live up above. If the termites are living in the ground, is it easy for them to get into the house if you've got all the dirt piled up inside of the house? It is. That's why you don't want to have, this is the type of stuff that you want to know in advance. If you're taking that listing as a listing, and I learned all this stuff as a listing agent, to be honest with you, and I learned it by making mistakes. The first time I had a home inspection done or a termite inspection done, and they said, "Hey, you got all this dirt piled up on the side of that." By the way, this is the house is like this. In case you haven't got my drawing. Okay, this is the house, and maybe we'll put the front door over here. Okay, and they've got dirt above the foundation level. Well, I learned the hard way. I learned the hard way that the home inspector says that's not good because when it rains, the water comes here, and instead of going, if it was here, the water would come down here below grade, and it would drain off into the area. If it's above grade, the ground gets saturated, the water comes in here, and it soaks into the side of the house. It's not good. Home inspectors don't like that. Termite inspectors don't like that. So when you go out there and you find this condition present on one of your listings, you tell yourself to fix it. Get your kids out here next weekend with a shovel and get all that dirt away from the house so that if it was to rain, the water is going to drain away from the house and away from the foundation. Okay? And get that stuff cleared up, or you're going to have a problem. Because you're going to have to fix it anyway. You have to do it now or do it when the termite guy comes out here. So, at any rate, getting back on the slab, the visible exterior concrete foundation, yada, 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 current condition of concrete could not be confirmed. Are they going to be able to determine the condition of the concrete slab? Generally not, but and by the way, all of my examples are real life examples. Let's just pretend again, this is the side of the house, and let's pretend that the grade is at level, okay? And now all of a sudden we got a big crack right in the side of the foundation. Okay, here's a bedroom window. Okay? Home inspector comes out and looks at that crack and says what?
Further inspection.
You got a crack. Further inspection. I don't know. Or they look at it and say, that's normal. I've had them come out and say, hey, if it's less than 1/8 of an inch or less than 3/8 of an inch, don't worry about it. Anything above that's a problem. Okay? I'm not an expert. I don't know. Okay, and then you couple that, let's suppose we got a big tree over here. We got our tree here, it's growing, and we got the trunk, and we got some roots going over here. Okay? So again, they're going to look at that sort of stuff. Are they experts when it comes to whether that foundation is good, bad, or otherwise? Of course not. Now some of it's obvious. You know, if you've got a foundation where it's obvious it's like this, and maybe a tree root or something's gotten underneath there. But anyway, they're going to call that stuff out. Is that expensive? It can be very expensive. Very, very expensive. Okay, interior floors of the building were not required. The interior floors of the building are not required to be perfectly smooth, flat, and or level. Okay, there you go. A little interesting factoid. So I guess he's telling the buyer, generally speaking, that they don't have to be completely flat. Exteriors. And again, he's got his little things over here. What do we got? Stucco. Again, I think this is just giving us the actual. Are we still in the definition side? Stucco, wood. Which I think we're actually describing our house. Siding type is stucco. Trim, wood. Door jamb type, wood. Window type, horizontal sliding, single pane. What's non-thermal mean? Single pane window, no thermal. Double pane windows are basically thermal pane glass. Okay, okay. So we got single pane windows. Window materials were made of metal as opposed to wood, I suppose. Exterior, whoops. Didn't go too far. Exterior conditions, stucco siding appears serviceable. So in other words, it's fine. Our stucco siding looks good. Okay, now we got our first little picture. So we got a CR, correction recommended, and FE, further inspection. Great. So what did this guy call out? Exterior trim. There were unprimed, unpainted materials noted around the exterior. Recommend correcting the condition. Paint the wood. I don't know what this picture's of. This looks like some sort of wood siding trim, decorative trim or something like that on the stucco. It's not painted. We're going to call that stuff out every single time. Every single time. Now again, this gets back to where, well, first of all, that's our correction recommended. What's our further inspection? There were damaged interior surface. You can already tell who's he asking to do further inspection. Well, no. Who? There were damaged interior termite. He's asking for the termite guy to come out. So number one, correction recommended. Termite guy to come out because this wood that's unpainted appears to be damaged. Now let's pretend for a moment. This is where I tried to part differences with some of the inspectors. Let's pretend there wasn't any damage, but it just wasn't painted. Okay? And he put a correction recommended that said some of the wood on the side of the house is bare, needs to be painted. What did he say on page 3 of the report up above? He said, don't close escrow until that's fixed. Right? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's a cosmetic thing.
It's a cosmetic thing.
Buyer
Let the buyer decide whether or not they want to close escrow. Okay? If the buyer decides it's okay and there's some paint here that needs to be dealt with, you know, and this is again where sometimes there is a little bit of friction between the realtors and the inspection community when it comes to this. So keep in mind, don't misunderstand me, we always recommend our properties get home inspections, but sometimes they can cause some trouble on something as minor as that, and the buyer will flip out. And you sit back, which is why, again, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but you need to exercise a certain amount of control over your buyers. You are the professional. Don't let a buyer blow up a deal because there's some paint that needs to be repainted on a piece of siding or trim. Explain to them how this process works. Okay, this is not a new house. Okay, you know, yes, it'd be nice to get that done, but you know, get out here on a Sunday after you bought the house. And by the way, if you don't know where Home Depot is, you're going to need to familiarize yourself with the location of Home Depot. You're a homeowner now. Okay. Going to have to be prepared to do some of these things. Okay, I'm not going to go through every one. I'm just going to pick out the ones that are the FEs and the FCs. So we already have at least one inspector that's called out, and that is our termite guy. Okay? Moist control. Further inspection. Our observation regarding evidence of damaged interior wood should not be a substitute for an inspection by a licensed pest control exterminator. We report current visible conditions only and cannot render an opinion regarding. Okay, so he's basically saying that. I'm not sure where the moisture comes in on this. Maybe I missed something. But maybe on the side of that siding, maybe it was getting hit by the sprinklers or whatever happens to be, which by the way is another one of those things. If you are investigating, doing your due diligence, as you're inspecting the house, or you take a listing, If it's obvious to you as you're walking around the house, which yes, you need to walk around the house. This is not just sit at the dining room table, take the listing paperwork and go. Check the house out, flush the toilets, look under the kitchen sinks, walk around, okay? You see sprinklers that have obviously been spraying against the side of the house for 20 years. Point it out. Look what you're doing here. Your stucco has got a big fan shape on it because it's been getting sprayed by the side of the house. Let's, at a minimum, let's stop that from happening today, okay? So let's get the sprinklers adjusted so they're spraying in the opposite direction, okay? What do you mean? Should I fix the stucco? Yeah, you probably should, but at a minimum, let's get those sprinklers facing the opposite direction. So you want to call that stuff out. Okay, that's good. I'm just going to kind of skip ahead because we've got a bunch of different inspection reports to take a look at. They're calling out our driveways. They're calling, what else have we got here? Okay, here we got some more correction. Side grading. Grading, drainage, this is probably going to go back to our diagram here in a minute. Correction recommended. There are areas where the adjustments, removal of topsoil and or vegetation from the grade of the foundation would be advised to help excess of moisture flow in. And this is almost the opposite. This is an example where, let's just go to this side of the house. There's the side of our house, and here's our foundation down. This is our foundation actually. Here's our big slab. Have you ever seen one of these houses where maybe on this side of the house, there's a slope that kind of tails off, okay? And now you've got the big ugly part of the foundation that's kind of sticking out, all right? Who knows? Maybe that's just a low side of the house. The rain's been eroding it. You know, you get that all the time too, and they don't like that. No, you want to get the dirt up here, okay? Because if we have this going on, now we get puddles of water, and next thing you know, the water is flowing underneath the foundation, undermining the foundation of the property. So I think that's what they were talking about here. Site drainage, RU, I don't remember RU. What was that one? There was no visible drainage system on the property. Based upon evidence noted around the building, we recommend a drainage system be added. Okay? How many properties in this city have drainage systems? Not most. Most of them, the drainage system in the property is how the lot's been graded. Okay? That's your drainage system. It's been graded so that the water flows and it rains and it kind of works its way to the front of the house and into the street. Okay? This one is saying give us a drainage system. Okay? Roof coverings. Recommended RU. That's a recommended upgrade. Forget about that one. Okay. Let's see what else we got here. On our roofs, it looks like we did okay with our roof on this one. Okay, we got a safety concern. Okay, I remember this house. So this is one of my properties I sold. Safety concern. There was improper wiring in the attic from extension cords or cord type wiring. We recommend correcting the conditions noted. Buyer looks at this and what happens? Woo! The buyer who saw this looked at this and what did they do? Woo! They freaked out. Okay? Because what is and there's a picture, I don't know if you can see this very well. This is in the attic, and there's a picture of an orange extension cord laying in the attic. Well, the whole house must be wired with orange extension cords. Same type that you do. Fire hazard. No, it was safety concern. Okay? This is another reason why it's not a bad idea for you as the buyer's agent, or even the listing agent, to attend these inspections. And by the way, this is how this inspection was done. The home inspector gets on his ladder, pops open, let's see if I can kill myself on film, pops open the thing, maybe crawls in, I'm looking in at the attic, right? I'm not even sure this guy got in the attic. Sees a flashlight, okay? Sees this orange extension cord in there, calls it out, flips everybody out. As I recall, this was probably the biggest concern on this report. Everyone's flipping out. You know what that was? Because I'm the one who went up in the attic. I physically went in the attic, and I wish I had been there, which by the way, and you may not all be up to this, and I know we have at least one lady in the room. You want me to go up into the attic, Lance, with the home inspector? If you can, yes. Okay? Because I went up in the attic 3 days after this inspection was done. The buyer's flipping out. We got wiring problems. The seller's like, I don't know what they're talking about. Is my deal going to close? I go up there, crawl into the attic.
Extension cord.
It's just an extension cord laying in there. It wasn't plugged into anything. It didn't go anywhere. Somebody at some point had gone up there with an extension cord. Maybe it was you know, looking at something, and just left it laying there, which gets back to the home inspector. Okay? Home inspector sometimes, when they had the home inspector taken an extra 3 seconds, looked a little closer, because part of the extension cord kind of went off into the dark or whatever it happened to be, or maybe it was tucked underneath a piece of insulation. Had just literally just kind of pulled it and would have said, oh, there's the 2 ends. No problem. It never would have even showed up on the report. But this caused 3 days of heartburn and stress, in my particular case for my seller. Okay? So again, perfect example of where, and again, by the way, is the home inspector doing their job? Of course they're doing their job, and by the way, they're not going to do that. They're not going to chase down, that's not their job. Their job is not, they identify something that looks wrong, their job is not to fix it. Okay? Their job is not to chase down the problem. They're saying, I observed something. So, perfect example of sometimes they observe something, and you know, there's the hose bib in the backyard has got a drip. Are they going to call that out? Hose bib where you hook the hose to the faucet. You know, you're washing your dog or whatever. It's got a drip. They're going to, yes, it's leaking. Are they going to recommend further investigation? Yes. Does that thing need to be replaced? Maybe, maybe not. Sometimes you just take a little crescent wrench, tighten that little washer or that little nut on top, quarter turn, washer compresses a little bit, that hose bib's good for another 5 years. Sometimes not. Sometimes it's just shot, it needs to be replaced. They don't do that though. They're not going to do that, which is why, again, if you have a little bit of experience with these things, and by the way, and I've done this may not be recommended practice, but I've done this and I would do it again tomorrow. If I'm meeting a home inspector out and he sees that hose bib leaking and I got my client, I'm going to reach into my little pocket, I'm maybe going to grab out my little wrench and I'm going to say, well, let's just, before we get too worked up here, let's just, oh, look at that. You happy with it? If you're not happy with my repair, you keep it on your report and Mr. and Mrs. Buyer will get a bid to replace it. But there's so many little things like this that can frankly squash your deal. And by the way, what happens when you have a list of 20 things? It just looks worse. They're all minor, but there's 20 of them. Okay? I want money. Okay? I want a $5,000 credit or a $2,000 credit or a $500 credit to fix this stuff. That just drives you mad. Okay, what do we got here under plumbing? They do normally test, PSI for the, they'll put a little gauge on there. And basically this particular one, we're just going to comment on that because 20 PSI is not very good. Water pressure is measured at 20 PSI, which is considered low. Correct it. Is it always easy to correct the water pressure coming into a house?
No.
No.
Definitely not.
Definitely not. You have a house that has bad water pressure? I do.
Yeah.
My house has terrible water pressure.
It has problems sometimes, yeah.
Well, my house is on a hill, and the main is down below by about 30 feet. It's pumping water up the grade. My water pressure is not great. There's not a darn thing I can do about it. Okay? But this guy says correct it. Now again, some cases, there are some things you can do about it. Maybe there's a blockage or something like that. But at any rate, he's correct. He's requested that. Hose faucets leak when handles are operated. We kind of already covered that. Waste piping, the visible waste piping appeared serviceable. Further investigation. Underground main sewer line was not visible. Okay, this guy's, for whatever, he's calling out, have somebody, a plumber, come out and inspect the underground sewer line. How do you do that? How do you inspect an underground sewer line? Gotta do it with a camera. What's it cost to take a camera and snake it?
Expensive.
Well, yeah, it's gonna cost several $100. It's a couple $100. Do you normally do that? Not normally. Not unless you're getting, normally we do it a lot, but the only time we do it in our property management department is we got a blockage, we clear it. 2 days later, we got a blockage, we clear it. 2 days later, we got a blockage, something's going on, let's get a camera. Okay, the pipe's broken.
Or people are throwing stuff they shouldn't down the pipe.
Or that too.
Clogging
but
it.
Normally you don't need a camera for that. Normally they'll pull it out. They pull out a G.I. Joe or something like that. Okay. Gas shut off. Gas shut off is serviceable. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. So let's just go through, only halfway through this report. Let's go move a little bit faster. Further investigation. The water supply connectors are corroded. Is it common? This is the top of the hot water heater. Here's the pipes coming out. Here's the flex lines going to the wall. You got some corrosion there. Common? Common is the sun coming up in the morning. Why do they corrode? Well, maybe there's just a little, just ever so slight of a leak, a drop a month, then you're going to get corrosion. Okay. What is this going to? I mean, buyer looks at that. House is 20 years old. Water heater's working fine. House is in generally good shape. Some buyers say, oh, whatever, no big deal. Other buyers want what?
Credit.
They want credit. They want a new hot water heater. They want, at a minimum, they want new flex lines. They want all that stuff fixed. Okay. So again, you got to manage your deals. Tank. Water heater tank was serviceable. Older unit. What's CR? Correction recommended. We recommend budgeting for replacement right here, right up front. So if the buyer wasn't thinking about it, now they're thinking about this hot water. And again, don't misunderstand me. The home inspector is doing their job, okay? But you need to be prepared for this. We have a safety concern. The water heater was not double strapped. That has to be done on all of our transactions, okay? Has to be done on every single one. Energy supply. Flexible gas connector was too short. That's the gas line coming from the wall into the hot water heater. It was too short. I don't know what the proper length is. I don't know if we're supposed to have 6 inches of play or 12 inches of play. I guess I should know that. Yeah, they say it's too short. Controls. The temperature controls were set to very high hot position. Again, to me that's silly. I'm looking at the hot water heater. This particular homeowner puts their hot water heater at maximum heat. Very high hot position. Alright, just turn the darn thing to normal.
Right.
Right? You're going to put a big red SC on my... Again, just know what you're doing.
You got about 15 things on the list now. You're
Well,
gonna
that's
get a
what
big,
I'm
long
saying.
list.
You see, that's why, and again, now this is why, again, you got to take this stuff with a grain of salt. You're the listing agent. Maybe you chose not to go to the home inspector. The home inspector, the agent calls, hey, there's a few things on the home inspection report. I just want to let you know I'm going to send it over. They send it, and I think there's a summary on here. Normally there's a summary. And well, there's a few things on the report. There's 24 things on here, and 7 of them are safety concerns. Like my wiring in the attic is bad, and my hot water heater is going to blow up. And okay, do your client's blood pressure tend to go up a little bit? And then when you really look at it, this is nothing. Matter of fact, in this particular one, I think everything on this list was corrected within 20 minutes at no cost. And keep in mind, we didn't do everything on the list. We didn't do anything with the hot water heater. You know, we didn't paint the stucco thing on the outside. So, heating unit, further investigation. This guy doesn't know anything about heaters. Call out a central heating guy. Condensing unit. Again, simple stuff. He's basically saying the outside condensing unit, that's the big unit that sits outside and makes all the noise when the air conditioner's on. There's some ivy or something growing on it. Okay? Not necessarily a big deal, but you can save yourself some headache. When you're out there looking at this, tell the seller, come on, let's get some of this stuff taken care of. System condition, further investigation. Outside air temperature was 65 degrees. Operating the system under these conditions could damage the condensing unit. In other words, what is he saying? It's hard to test the air conditioner when it's really cold outside. Okay? Having said that, I think if you go up to the top of the report, I think did he say it was, I don't think he said it was 65. I thought he said it was like 70 to 80. 70 to 80. Oops. When we sue this guy, now we got him, right? So at any rate, he's basically saying it's difficult to test an air conditioning unit when it's too cold outside. Is that true? Yeah. You can get them on. You can crank that thing down to 60 degrees and
You can see if it's working, if it's blowing cold air.
Sure,
I mean,
you can.
it might not be ideal, but
Okay, where's this where I left off? Combustion engine controls. Okay, let's see what else we got on this particular one. Let's just look. We got a further investigation. Alarm system. Come on. These systems are outside the scope of the inspection. Further investigation. The security system. Give me a break. Okay. You know, intercom system. Has anybody ever sold a house that had an intercom system that actually worked? I never have. I've never been in a house that's had an intercom system that's worked that I've actually sold. So, okay. So let's just buzz through the rest of this, and then we're going to hit the next inspection. By the way, have any of you guys ever seen an inspection on property that you've done? Okay. This is pretty similar. This is pretty standard stuff. Heating unit. Air conditioning, kitchen. Recommend replace accessible receptacles were serviceable. They were not GFI protected. Okay, so say put a GFI. You don't want a GFI. That's pretty common stuff. Dishwasher. Further investigation was functional. It was an older model. This is basically what this guy is saying. Very, very common on your home inspection reports. It's an old dishwasher. It worked, but don't look at me. Things could break tomorrow, right? Pretty standard. Exhaust fan. The exhaust fans and lights function, with the exception as noted. Exhaust fan was dirty and greasy. Is that pretty common? I can't tell you how many dirty, greasy exhaust fans I've seen. But it's an SC and it's in red and it's a safety concern. Okay. Gas ovens, microwave needs to be corrected. Okay, what else we got? Ooh, we got a picture of something. What do we got here? Safety concern. The gas line was not sealed at the wall where it entered the firebox. Oops. We recommend sealing the gap around the pipe and the firebox wall. What this is a bad picture. We're in the fireplace. It's got a gas line that comes out the side. And apparently there was just a little bit of a gap or a hole there. It's an SC, it's a safety concern. Okay, I'm gonna get that sealed up. By the way, what does your seller say to most of these things?
Not happy.
I've been living in this house for 22 years. Place is fine, right? Okay. Okay, let's jump out of this report. Let's take a look at another one. Okay, this is a different property. Basically, you're going to see generally the same sort of stuff. Again, we got our, what's our weather? 60 to 70, no recent rain, so on and so forth. Frame stucco house, conditions unknown, utilities were on, all that sort of good stuff. Repairs needed. Okay, again, typical stuff that we should be prepared for. Remove debris from erosion. This is actually, this picture is what I tried to draw up there. This is the corner of a house. The dirt should be up to here, and the dirt is, I mean, you literally got all the messy concrete foundation from the corner. This is the driveway up here. I don't know, that could be 2 feet, 3 feet. Okay. When you is that common in the city?
Yeah.
It's very common in the city. You got small lots, maybe they're staggered, and the developer had to kind of make a nice little pitch to get everything to flow right for the next lot. Very, very common. Okay, so they're calling that out. They're telling you to remove the trash. What do we got? Ah, this is a big no-no. This is kind of the example I gave over here, only they've actually created a planter. You know, you have a client, they put a planter on the side of their house. Looks like maybe a 2 foot, 3 foot high wall. They've tried to seal it. This is black like tar and moisture barrier between. Then they fill it up with dirt, and then they decide to plant some banana trees. Good idea? Bad idea.
Yeah, because the banana tree.
Well, the banana tree is a problem, but maybe they planted small little flowers in there. Still a bad idea, because basically you start filling this up with water to water the stuff, and even if you've got a moisture barrier or the stucco, it's just a moisture problem. So you need to know these things, and part of what I'm trying to convey to you is you guys want to have the home inspector hat on as well. Okay, be prepared for this stuff, because again, a lot of your buyers, they're not going to order a home inspection. Okay, they're not. Is it a bad idea they don't order a home inspection? You're selling the house, you're representing them, or the seller for that matter. You see that? If you have enough knowledge to know that that's a bad idea, you need to convey that to your client. Hey, one of the very first things that you need to do when you close escrow, notice how I approach that?
No, just close it first and
right.
then after the fact.
One of the very first things you need to do after you close escrow is you need to tear that wall down. I'm not saying, hey, before we close escrow, let's get the seller to take this wall down. Okay? Now, maybe there are some cases where I would say that. Okay? Depending on the price. But this is how if I'm representing the buyer, like, well, what's that? That's going to cost a couple, $3,000 or whatever they put figure on it. Okay, great. Let's offer them a couple, $3,000 less. If we were going to offer them $150, let's offer them $145. And if they ask us why, we're going to say, we're offering you $5,000 less because you built a moat around your house. Then we have to tear it down. Okay, so know what you're dealing with. What else have we got here? We've got some loose bricks. I don't know if this picture comes across very well. How common is this? This is like a little thing. They put some bricks on top of it, and the bricks have fallen off on the planter. If I had a dollar, I'd be a millionaire if I had a dollar for every time I've seen those. They're so common. And of course, this inspector wants to call that out. Attention required. What do we have here? Weatherproofing at front porch column. You've got it's probably getting hit by sprinklers. It's deteriorated. It needs to be fixed. Again, very common stuff. I actually like this report a little bit better because instead of it's saying attention is required, but this isn't saying this has got to be done or the world's going to end. Just saying, hey, you got some weatherproofing issues here. What do you want to do with it? You want to fix it or you want it? I think I like this inspector style a little bit better. Again, attention required. Chimney on side of building, west side of building. He's pointed out to the chimney. What's wrong with it? Observation from the ground with the blockers. There's no spark arrestor. Okay, so there's not a spark arrestor on the top of the chimney. Okay, he's observing that.
Oh, that's like the little cap?
Yeah, little cap. Okay,
We don't have
big
one on
fire.
top of my chimney.
There you go. So, get a spark arrestor. We got a Pierce functional. Ooh, got attention required. Description: metal roll up, not insulated. One door installed. One door automatic. Keep in mind, this is an old report. This is 6-7 years old report. Now, do you have to have the automatic reversers on the garage doors?
Yeah.
Yes, you do. It's just like a smoke detector anymore. If you have a garage door opener installed on a property, in the old days, you go to put the garage door down and little Johnny runs underneath it, it wouldn't stop. It would just come down and crush him. Okay, now it's got the little sensor light that goes across your feet and the garage door comes back up. This didn't have that, and at the time, I don't think that was required. I think that's only been required for about 7 years or so.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, so this was, I think, done in 2004. Was the last time I was teaching these classes regularly. Okay, so he's basically just saying, hey, take care of that. So what else we got here? Structures. Looks like we got a roof problem over here. Again, I like this guy. Minor slippage in some locations. Who's driven down the street in a house in Rio Valley with tile roofs? I got to tell you, if you haven't done this, do this. Go down any street that has a tile roof, drive slowly, look at the roofs, and if you don't find at least one tile that's kind of slid out of position within the first 5 houses, you're not looking hard enough. Okay? I like this inspector though, because he's basically saying minor slippage in some locations. He's not saying the roof is falling apart. Okay? He's saying, in my opinion, this is factual. You've got some tiles that are slipping. Are a lot of these roofs built that are floated? The answer is yes. What I mean by floated, not every tile is actually nailed in place. They literally put a row and they're placed and they're kind of like interlocking, so to speak. But not everyone thinks those tiles, every one of those is actually nailed down to the, not how a lot of these roofs are built. Okay? So when you see a roof, so what do you do when one slips? You crawl up there real carefully and you push it back in position. Fixed. What's going to slip again? It might. You could potentially put some mastic or something in there. But those are not all glued in place. They're not all nailed in place. That's just how it is. Okay. Down here, it looks like we've got a couple tiles that are cracked. Okay. Typical maintenance recommended. I love this guy. Okay. Minor slippage and cracks observed in some areas. This usually consists of repair, replacement, or damage mostly displaced shingles. Maintenance should help ensure that the weather doesn't affect. But again, typical maintenance. Not that the roof is falling apart. How did this one get cracked? Who knows? Somebody's putting up Christmas lights one day or one year.
Yeah, the last guy would have like safety concern. Must be
Right,
fixed right
exactly,
now.
Exactly. So again, not that there's one that's any better than the other, but I just like the way this is presented a little bit better. What do we got? Okay, we got something going on here. Okay, we're in the attic. We got look at something cracked. Okay. Action required. Attic is only partially accessible. 10% was observed due to access problems, construction styles, yada yada yada. Evidence of repaired horizontal crack at south end beam of attic. Truss construction with wafer board roof deck sheathing. So I think what he's saying is this was cracked and there's some sort of evidence that it was repaired. Okay. Take a look at the repair. Doesn't say replace it. Just says, hey, there's something that was going on in here. Okay, we've got our fiberglass in here. Evidence of, there's been a mouse up in the attic. Evidence of rodent activity was noted. You may wish to have a treatment carried out. As opposed to further inspection, your house is infested with rodents. Okay? I don't care how nice your house is. I don't care how old or how new it is. If you go up in your attic, you got a good chance you're going to find some mouse droppings or some rat droppings. It's just the way it is. Okay? They're everywhere. So, okay, what do we got here? We got some gas, natural gas side. Okay, got a picture of our gas meter. Great. Isn't that nice? We got our water supply. It's pretty typical. Okay, appears functional. That's all good. We've got our regulator for the water meter. Okay, sounds pretty good. Heaters, functional, everything looks functional. Boy, look at this. Oh, here we got a water heater. What's the difference between a gas hot water heater and an electric hot water heater?
Gas uses propane.
Gas is gas,
Right.
and electric uses electric. The trick question. Okay. Having said that, what's a it's a 40-gallon water heater, pretty standard in your typical single-family house, 1,700 square feet, family of 4. Anything less than that, you're going to have wet. You have a problem. You got people taking showers back to back in the morning. I got to wait 15 minutes. Tom just took a shower. Okay. You do need to be careful with that when you're looking at these properties. If you go into a house, anything that's over 1,700 square feet, 2 bathrooms, this more than 3 bedrooms, and it's got less than a 40-gallon hot water heater in it, you don't have enough hot water. Okay. A lot of the larger houses, if you've got over 3,000 square feet, it's not uncommon for them to have multiple hot water heaters in the house. One in the garage and maybe one actually literally in the hallway. Well, why is that? Well, because if I got a hot water heater in the garage and I've got a master bedroom that's, on the other side of the house, how long is it going to take for that hot water heater to travel to the other side of the house?
Wow.
You're going to be running water for 5 minutes before it's hot. You need to know that sort of stuff. Okay. And let's see, we're really eating up some time. Okay, so bottom line, we've got a service panel, and looks like the wiring was correct on this one, and just make some comments here and there. Okay, so bottom line, I'm going to jump off the home inspection reports, and we're going to jump into really quickly to some natural hazards. But on the home inspection reports, very, very simple. You always recommend your clients get them. When the reports come back, take a deep breath, relax, calm down your client, get the summary in front of you, and if you haven't already, go back out to the house, because you're going to find that probably 85% or more of the items on the home inspection report are so minor, you're literally going to scratch your head and say, wow, I just wasted a whole lot of time looking at this stuff. Okay? But you need to be prepared to approach it that way. Okay. Natural hazard disclosures. This is a report. Now, again, this is an old form. This is a CAR form that hasn't, again, 2004, I guess, was the last time I was teaching these classes. It's 2012. This form has been updated. You can still find it in the CAR forms library. You are never, ever to use this form. Never. Okay? Let me give you the... It looks like this, and this is asking you, or specifically your seller, to answer these questions. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Let me blow this back up so you can see a little bit better with the questions that they're asking. They're asking your client, is the property a special flood hazard area, type zone A or V? Area of potential flooding, shown on dam failure inundation map pursuant to section 5989.5, yes or no? A very high fire hazard severity zone pursuant to section yada yada yada, yes or no? You never answer these questions. You never let your client answer these questions, okay? Is the property in an earthquake fault zone? A seismic hazard zone? A liquefaction zone? Oh yeah, we're in Southern California, it's an earthquake zone. We are, the San Andreas Fault, if you guys don't know it, runs, it's less than 10 miles from here. Okay, I think it basically runs through Santa Mateo Canyon. Okay? We are not in an earthquake zone. Are you kidding me? Andreas Fault right there. We're in Southern California. We're going to break off and fall into the ocean. These zone maps, they're not defined. Okay. Now, do you tell your client? As a matter of fact, I tell them the exact opposite because they're going to get. Matter of fact, let's get a report back. By the way, we know. Okay, so we never use this. This is the NHD revised. We never use this form.
Clarify.
Yes, sir.
You say never use,
Never
or
use.
never have them sign. Sign
comes,
it.
That comes with the
Never fill it out or what?
We never.
Yeah.
Let's go back. Let's go back. You're thinking ahead. You guys are thinking ahead. This form, California Association of Realtors form, requires somebody to put a physical pen to paper and check a box, yes or no, and sign the bottom. We never, ever use this form in this office. What we use is the same form, but it comes in the form of a natural hazard disclosure report. Okay? This one happens to be put out by California Property Disclosure. They're put out by First American. There's bunches of different companies that do that. Let's go. This is a summary. Do these questions look familiar?
Yeah.
Who put yes, yes, no, 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 yes, yes, yes in here?
Experts, professionals.
The experts, the people who you paid the 50 or 100 bucks to do the report. Okay? And by the way, talking about the earthquake fault zones, there's no maps available. There's still no maps available. There are no maps available. I've been doing this for 25 years. They've been telling me, a couple, 3 years, they're going to have the maps available. I don't know where these maps are. So there's no maps available. Okay? This is all done by the company. Their form, does this form look familiar?
Yes.
This is the same form that I told you never to use. The California Association of Realtors form, where you have to fill out with pen and paper, you are never to use it. You are to have your client pay the 50 or 100 bucks to have these people fill out the same form. And the nice part about this form is it's got the company's name on top, California Property Disclosure. It's got all of their info. They are the experts. Let them put their checks in the box. Then, now is your buyer and seller going to sign it at the bottom? Yes, they are. But they're going to sign it based upon the representations that have been made to them by the company that provided the report. And what happens if those representations are wrong? Who is going to be responsible to step up and take care of it? This company. In my entire 25 years, I have not only have I never personally experienced, I have never heard of a claim that's come out of one of these reports that have been filed against these companies. I'm sure there may be one. I've never even heard of one. So when you order these reports, they do it, not you. Okay. Now, in addition, they're going to give you some additional information. Okay. They're going to give you some stuff about airport vicinities, military ordnance, database disclosure, CDP indemnification certificate, mold disclosures, okay? Let's just start with airport vicinity. Real story, they're all real stories. I sold one of my very best friends, one of my very best friends, my very best friend, a house in Burbank in 2002. The closest I have ever lived to Burbank is Lakewood, which is not close to Burbank. And I came out here. Prior to selling him this house in Burbank, the closest house I had ever sold to Burbank was probably in the city of Linwood. I used to sell in the Lakewood, Long Beach, Cerritos area. Is Linwood close to Burbank? No. The only thing I know about Burbank is that's where they filmed The Tonight Show. Okay? So.
Beautiful downtown Burbank.
Beautiful downtown Burbank. That's right. That's right. So, I sell my buddy this house in Burbank. We do our due diligence. We close escrow. Did he get a home inspection?
Mhm.
Who did the home inspection with him? Who did his home inspection?
You did.
You.
I did. By the way, I mentioned earlier I had a contractor's license. I also used to have a structural pest control license to inspect for termites. I'm dangerous. Okay? So my buddy, who at the time weighed probably 280 pounds, old house, World War II vintage, 1945 vintage house in Burbank, raised foundation, crawl space, an area about the size of this screen that you could crawl under to get into the, I was a little thinner back then, okay? Who crawls under the house?
You did.
You.
Because I'm super agent, okay? I can do it, buddy. I throw on some coveralls, I go under there, everything looks good, man. Okay? I do home inspection, I do it all, everything's great. We close escrow, everything's cool. We have a housewarming party the next weekend. I am sitting in his backyard drinking. At the time, I'm a Coors Light drinker now. At the time, I was drinking MGD, Miller Genuine Draft. Loved the MGDs. Sitting back, we're barbecuing. We had been there all of about 10 minutes. And I look up because there is a plane that is literally, I could see the wheels haven't even been picked up yet. I could read the thing, I could read the letters, the fine print, and this thing is
It was on the flight path. At the
taking off over my buddy's house. Taking off. I don't say a word. About 15 minutes later, for the rest of the afternoon, every 12 to 15 minutes. And I don't mean these planes, like they literally just took off. They could not have been more than 400 or 500 yards up in the air. I mean, you literally, the landing gear was still out. They were still, okay, they hadn't picked the landing gear up yet. So I can't stand it anymore. And I turned to my buddy, I said, Skip, please tell me that you knew before we closed escrow on this house that the Burbank Airport was right there, and they flew right over your house. Oh yeah, Lance, I do that. I don't know where. Okay. Now, the lesson there is you better know the neighborhood you're selling your properties in, and I don't care if your license is good for the entire state. I don't care if it's your best friend or your mom or your dad and all the rest of that, because your best friend, your mom, your dad, they will sue you. Okay? Yes, your parents too. Okay? And maybe not, depending on your relationship with your parents. But are you going to have a client? Do you have a disclosure problem? Airport vicinity noise, commercial, industrial. You better know what you're talking about. Okay? And you better make sure you get your natural hazard disclosure reports. And by the way, if you didn't know, March Air Force Base is about 2 miles from here. And if you're selling houses that border Heacock or Cactus or anything on that side, are there people that are coming into this community that have no idea that there's a military base? And yes, it is a military base. All the base has been closed for 10 years. That base is not closed. That base is as busy now as it's ever been. They still, I mean, half of the people that are going to Afghanistan and Iraq are flying out of that base. Okay? Could you have a client that says, oh my God, I didn't know. I'm too close. Well, you better get your disclosures out. You better know what you're selling. Okay, I could go crazy on this. Okay, we got other things. Now, there are some blanks in here. Now, we don't normally use this type of report. This report has been replaced by some of the seller disclosure reports, property disclosure reports. But it asks the same type of question. I'm gonna buzz by these. Here's your airport vicinity. This is saying, is the property in this particular case? No, it wasn't subject to that. Military ordinance. Oops. Is the property close to military ordinance zone? No. If this is on Namwood, which actually is pretty darn close to the base, had this property been located maybe 2 streets to the south, that very well could have said yes. Okay?
It is right.
It's right there. I mean, it's close.
It's
Okay.
right. It should be yes.
Database disclosure. What's this? We don't use this anymore. What has this been replaced by? Megan's Law. Okay. The database disclosure is Megan's Law. In the old days, we used to say contact the sheriff. Now you go to meganslaw.com or meganslaw.org. Okay. And it's in the contract. This is all of the property disclosure companies have some sort of insurance that they're offering with this, and of course they have some waivers as well. Mold disclosures. Okay. Hey, guess what? Now this is not saying the property has mold. They do not come out to the property and check for mold. This is just saying, hey, you've got to be aware of mold. It could be an issue if you're concerned about that. Okay, oh, by the way, this gives you some definitions of the flood zones. I mean, all this stuff, I mean, this a special flood hazard, that is a legally defined term, okay? So in a dam or reservoir, what's an inundation? Dam or reservoir, what does that mean? It means there's a dam, and if it breaks, you're going to be inundated.
Yeah, like the one out in Hammond.
Like the one, how about the one in Marina Valley? I go skiing at Lake Paris all the time in the summertime. Anybody been to Lake Paris in the last few years? Well, the water level used to be here. Guess where the water level is now? It's here. You know why? Because the state came out and said that dam is not stable. Take the water down. What happens if that dam, who gets inundated if the dam that holds back the water at Lake Paris fails?
Marina Valley Ranch.
Well, no, mostly the city of Paris and May Ranch. Okay? They are in a dam inundation area. If that reservoir fails, and you're right, the reservoir out in Hemet, Diamond Valley Lake, and all of them, okay? If those fail, you're going to get wet, okay? A very high severity zone, so on and so forth. So, and by the way, there's a difference between a very high severity zone, fire zone, and I think there's just a high fire zone. Okay, fault zone. What else we got here? Okay, this is just some disclosures. Okay, all right. So, with the oh wow, this is good too. I'm glad I almost jumped off of this. A lot of times on the preliminary title reports, it's not always clear exactly how the taxes are broken out, or if there's Mello-Roos taxes. Don't ask me why. That has been a pet peeve of mine for 20 years. I'm paying money for a preliminary title. Hold on just a second.
Can you please stop here?
I'll try.
Yes. She told me I was on the property, waiting for her, she called my wife and said, can I reschedule?
There we go. Okay. All right. Before we were so rudely interrupted, I was talking about my pet peeves in relation to preliminary title reports. Preliminary title reports should have a nice breakdown of not just the taxes, but see how nice this is? It gives you all the bond service, and it literally breaks it down for the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. Debt service is $5.47. Okay, and I don't know if this property has it, but if there's Mello-Roos, it'll give you the Mello-Roos on here too, which is also not normally readily available on preliminary title reports, where it should be. I don't know why they do that. District assessments.
They're doing it.
What's that?
They're doing it now.
On prelims, not on every prelim. You will not find Mello-Roos taxes listed on every single prelim. It should be. And that's, again, that's a problem. Is it important to know whether your property is located in the Mello-Roos district?
Very important.
Very important. I love the zone disclosure reports. Property ID is probably the best. Not a commercial for property ID, but property ID is also the most expensive. Okay, I think now those are $125 or something like that. So,
Which isn't bad if it
it's not bad.
protects you from a loan.
It's not. And by the way, who normally pays for the zone disclosure reports? This is required to be given from the seller. This is required from the seller to be provided to the buyer. I'm kind of giving you the answer to the question. Who normally pays for the zone disclosure reports?
Seller.
The seller. Do they have to? It's negotiable. But normally, it's pretty standard operating procedure that the seller pays for. Okay, so here is a zone disclosure. I think I have another one, just really quickly. This is another one by LGS. Again, same type of thing. Okay, here's the form. Here's our yes, no boxes. Same thing. Already seen it. Okay. Again, buyers and sellers sign down at the bottom. Okay. Who's the transferor, by the way? Seller. Transferee is the buyer. Good. Okay. Okay, we got some explanations. Flooding areas, high dam failures. That's your dam inundation stuff. State fire responsibility areas. Which, by the way, is that important as well? I've owned, it seems like every house I've ever owned has had some sort of fire issues. Okay, not that they've ever been burned, but you know, I try to go get insurance. I'm like, oh, you're too close to the state fire responsibility area. We won't write fire and homeowners insurance for you. Huh? Well, yeah, you got to go to the ABC company, and of course you got to do what? You got to pay more. Okay, which is ironic because I've never really lived in a house which I ever thought was in anywhere close to a fire zone. A lot of Sunbeam Ranch, by the way, just because you're in the Box Springs Mountain and all the rest of that, a lot of that is in a fire zone. Okay, you know, and by the way, how many times have we seen that hill burn in the last 20 years?
Had fires.
A whole bunch of times. I don't think they've ever lost any houses, residential tract houses. I think there's been a couple houses up
They
there.
had a fire up there last summer. I remember.
All the time.
seeing some.
And they've lost some of the rural houses up there. Never any of the tract houses. But at any rate, so same type of report. Here's our airport proximity, airport influence. Was my buddy's house influenced by the airport? And by the way, those planes fly like every 12 to 15 minutes until 10 p.m.
Well, does he
Every
still
night.
live there?
Huh?
Does he still live there?
Yeah. I couldn't do it.
Just invest in the fear of
Couldn't.
airplanes or something.
And I'm again. I live in Canyon Crest, which is actually in the flight path of March Air Force Base. But by the time the planes get to me, they're way up in the sky. And you hear, you know. Sometimes they don't fly a lot of flights out of there. Okay. But at any rate, man, I mean.
So the whole time with Skip, I mean, when you guys were looking at properties, and none of that occurred while you guys were really?
Or if it occurred, I was oblivious to it.
Wow. Okay.
Wasn't thinking about it. And we were at the property, that one time we did the home inspection, there had to have been some flights going by. Didn't, you know.
Not until the beer was in the head.
Not until the beer was in, I'm relaxing, I wasn't working, I wasn't thinking about it. And I'm not, and when I say in the flight path, I literally mean that his street is like an extension of the runway.
Like the pilot could have jumped out of the plane and not even needed a
looking,
parachute.
I'm not looking over there. I'm not looking over. I'm looking straight up. That thing is flying right over his house. Crazy, scary. Like I say, we laughed about it afterward because he knew he was. I think he was teasing me because it had to be 3 or 4 planes flew over before I had the guts to say anything to him. Okay, anyway, you got the same general idea. All of these reports generally look the same, okay? So I'm not going to, obviously we didn't spend a whole heck of a lot of time on that one. Again, if I had to do a commercial for the natural hazard disclosure reports, I probably would do a commercial for property ID. They are the most expensive, but there's just great, and they have great guarantees, and if anything ever does go wrong, they'll cut your client a check for $1 billion or some ridiculous amount of insurance. I mean, it's not $1 billion, but it's like, I think it's literally like $500,000, which in most cases is going to be worth more than the property that you're selling. Okay, now we're going to shift to termite reports. Before we get into termite reports, I'm going to give you guys a lesson on termites. Okay, here's my house. Here's our dirt. 2 different types of termites. You have subterranean termites, referred to as subs. They live in the ground. Okay? They have their nest down in the ground. They come up in here. They find a little crack in the foundation or whatever they do. They come up. They work their way into the wood. They eat the wood, and then when they're done, they go back down into the ground, and then they make more termites and go to sleep and do whatever they do. Okay? Those are called subterranean termites. There is a different type of termite that's called a drywood termite. Okay, there's my roof line. And drywood termites, drywoods, they live in the actual wood that they are eating, and that is their home. They never go into the ground. So once they get into the house, they stay there. Okay? The subterranean termites, if you block their access to the ground, and you basically, let's say you poison this area, now they don't have a way to get, they can't eat fast enough to get back down, they will die in the wood, okay? Because they need moisture. They need to get back into the ground to drink water and do whatever they do, otherwise they will die. The drywood termites, on the other hand, never get a cup of water in their life. There is enough moisture in a dried out 2x4 that when they eat it, they get their food and they get their water out of eating a piece of wood. Sounds ridiculous, but it's true. Okay. So now the reason I make that distinction is, and by the way, there's different species of drywoods and subterraneans, and some are more aggressive than others and all the rest of that. But anyway, the bottom line is I make that distinction because you guys need to know this. And you need to know this if for no other reason you need to represent your clients properly. And you don't want your clients to get taken advantage of. Okay? So let's take a look at this report and see what we got. This was done by Adu, and this is an old report, which, by the way, the formatting of these reports is governed by the Structural Pest Control Board. Okay? Remember we did the class on mold, and we said there's no governing body for the mold, there's no licensing standard, there's no certifications. That is not true. These guys are regulated. They're not just like, but very similar to general contractors. You can't just go to a website and say, I want to be a termite guy, and someone puts a sticker on you that says you're a certified termite inspector. You have to be licensed, passed a state exam, and you are regulated. Every single termite report, by the way, they all look like this. Let me just give you the full page view.
They're stored in Sacramento, right?
And every single report is sent to structural, I don't know if it's Sacramento or not, but the reports are sent to the Structural Pest Control Board, every report. That would be the equivalent of every time we wrote an offer or took a listing, we had to put a little certain government stamp on it and send it in to the California Department of Real Estate. Okay? And every report goes there and it's saved. So if a consumer calls and says, I had to do termite pest control come out and inspect my property a year ago, they can pull it up. And by the way, let's suppose you have 4 termite inspections done. They'll be able to pull up all 4. Now, assuming that the company is licensed and doing what they need to be doing, all of those reports are sent to the state. Okay, so here's our report. Here's basically their registration number, the equivalent of their license number, if you will. This is a complete report, which, by the way, if you're ordering a termite inspection for a property that you're selling and you do not get a complete report, what's the lender going to say? Go back and give me a complete report. If it comes back, why would it be a limited report? Because the garage was completely locked and you wouldn't let the termite inspector get in the garage. Or they went to do the report and the 3 back bedrooms, you have roommates in there and they all locked their bedrooms, they couldn't come in and inspect the bedrooms. Or you had pit bulls in the backyard, whatever. Okay, so, and it'll say that, it's a limited report. And then down here somewhere it'll say, I was unable to inspect the 3 back bedrooms. You need to come back, okay? So, here's our report. What did they find? Oh, by the way, you can always look really quickly. These are going to be your finding lines. Found dry rot, fungus, subterranean termites. Subterranean termites live where? In the ground. Okay. Did not find any drywood termites. CS stands for concrete slab. They draw a very basic, needless to say, very basic drawing. And they've got finding 1, finding 2, finding 3. Now we don't know what finding 1, finding 2, finding 3 is until we get to the rest of the page, so let's go down a little bit. Got our standard language. And $50 is what they charge for our inspection. Okay, finding 1. Evidence of subterranean termites noted entering the garage through the cold joint between the slab and the foundation. Anybody know what a cold joint is? Anybody know what the slab and the foundation is? Okay, you got the slab in the garage, you got the foundation kind of up against the wall, you got the joint in between there. Normally there's a piece of felt or something in there.
Yeah, oh, I know it.
It's a cold joint. There you go. See, you can kind of figure this stuff out yourself. That's finding 1. So if we go back to our map, in theory, we could go open up the garage, kind of walk into the corner over here on the right, and somewhere in this area probably we're going to find evidence of subterranean termites. Well, what's the evidence? You're not necessarily going to go in there and find a piece of wood that's half-eaten. Isn't normally how it works. In fact, I have to show you this picture. This is a real picture. I did not make this up.
That's what we're looking at. Can I ask you something quick? Sure. Your property inspections, when you advise your buyers to do them at all time.
Yep.
When you're initially taking them out to go look at properties, do you prepare them, say, hey, you know what, you should be prepared with X amount of money to do reports? Because, I mean, they'll do one for one property, and for whatever reason, their fines that they don't like, they'll have to do another one. Do you just tell them, hey, be prepared to do 2 reports? Or
For a home inspection or for a termite inspection?
To do a home inspection.
I don't normally ask them to do 2. I don't normally. I mean,
like if you're out shopping, I mean, and then you know they like a house that they want, you know, and then they get the inspection, and they're like, oh, they see something they don't like. Now they ditched that one. Now they got to go do another.
But you're talking about the buyer, or talking about
buyer?
Oh, like when you
No,
go
because
to
normally if the buyers find something they don't like, they want it fixed. So in some cases, the worse the inspection, in some cases, it's better. Put yourself on the buyer's side. You get in and we're going to talk about this on the termite side. You have 2 inspections for termites, or 2 inspections for home inspection. One says this hot water heater is dead, needs to be replaced. You get another one that says this hot water heater is fine. Doesn't the buyer normally gravitate towards the one that maybe is a little bit more of a severe opinion?
True. Well,
Okay.
maybe what I was talking about, one property, two properties, two different properties, or
Okay.
maybe multiple.
Okay.
So they found the property like through the contract or whatever, they did the inspections, that one came back, something they saw they didn't like. So
Okay.
that cost them already, whatever the inspection, that
Okay.
money's gone.
Got
So
it?
now they see another property, they moved on to another one, now they want to do another inspection again. So
Gotcha.
do you prepare them for that, or do you just, it's never a concern, it's never come up?
I don't know that I do prepare them for that in that way, because normally we just deal with the inspection that we have at hand, and if it's a problem, we just deal with the problem. Just literally, we just deal with what we've got. But normally, buyers are not the ones who are ordering multiple inspections. Normally, it's a seller who would be ordering a multiple inspection. Which again, I'm going to show you this house. This is a real house. I sold this thing in 2004. And again, I apologize for how slow these pictures are gonna scroll by.
Fast on my computer.
But wow, I'm on terminal server. Okay, let's take a look at this. Actually, this is gonna take a little longer. But let me get to
That looks like one of Dwayne's listings we had last year.
this is a property in I think it was in Realtor, Fontana.
It's a San Bernardino, 1442 West 4.
Oh, San Bernardino.
Yeah, that's SB.
You know that area? You got that one figured out?
You can tell.
Oh, come on. Computer's moving so slow.
Mike loves that area.
Okay, let me get you. I want to show you some termites.
Did it crash on the bottom there?
Yeah, you'll see in a minute.
The glacier on traffic lights right there. Get stuck out there, might not come right.
Okay.
Michael.
All right, this picture was taken from the inside of the house. Okay? Inside the house. There's no drywall on the house. This is supposed to be a 2x4. All of this is termite damaged. Okay? This is such an extreme example of a house that has termite damage. And the entire inside of this house was basically gutted. So it was an old house. It's probably 60 years old. And again, we're inside the house right now. Somebody bought it. Does this look like new wood?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I showed you what I showed you before was not so new wood. They literally were trying to rebuild this house and replacing the termite damage throughout. But it was so severe, like that board I just showed you. You don't normally see that. You're not normally going to see that sort of stuff. So when you go back to, you get this termite report, and you're looking at this, you could go over here, and it's going to look like this. You know, it's got drywall there. I don't see no damage. And what you only may see for some subterranean termites is maybe just what looks like a little bit of mud. Okay, which is how they make little mud tubes.
Yeah.
So if you see a little mud tube on a wall, and what the heck is this? It looks like some kid put a little mud and made like a little trail. Well, that's a termite tube. They make a little tube and there's a little hole inside and they crawl through the tube. Okay. Now if they're drywood termites, let's pretend for a moment that this report here said drywood termite box was checked. Okay. And let's go back to our map and let's suppose it said there's drywood termites noted here. Again, you're not normally going to see a board that's just all deteriorated. And if you are going to see that, normally the only place you're going to see that is maybe like out on a fence. You know, have you ever seen a back patio fence or something like that and it just disintegrates? You don't normally see that in the house. But with drywood termites, normally the evidence you're going to see is basically little sandy, grainy pellets. Okay? They're literally pellets about the size of a grain of sand. And you'll see them on a windowsill. Sometimes they'll be piled up really nice, like a little pyramid. Little pile of pellets, or you'll see them scattered. Look like somebody took a little handful of sand and just kind of scattered it all over. That's termite poop. Don't eat it. Actually, you could eat it. It probably isn't going to hurt you at all because you know what it is? It's wood. They ate the wood. They took some nutrients out of it. They squeezed every little ounce of moisture that was still left in that wood, and they pooped it out as a little piece of sandy wood. That's all it is. So when you see drywood termite pellets, okay, that means you got these type. Where do they live? They live inside the wood. They never go down to the ground, and they produce these little pellets. Sometimes you'll see a little hole that's in the wall. You'll see all these little pellets all over. What the heck's going on over here? there's all this little sandy stuff up here. And you can kind of see, it looks like they started and you find the center line and you kind of go up and you go up, you go up, you go up, and you see a little bitty hole, about the size of a really small nail hole. And you look really close and you see a little termite looking at you. And you know what he's doing? You know, he's not laughing at you. He's got a little piece of poop in his hand and he's going to push it out the hole. And it's going to fall on the ground. Why is he pushing the poop out the hole? They need room. They're making tunnels. Okay? So when you see those pellets being picked, that's their housekeeping, man. They got the cleaning crew in there saying, let's get the poop out of the house. And they throw it on the floor. And that's how we find them. So anyway, so there's your little lesson on drywood termites and what have you. Okay, now let's go back to the rest of our report. Finding number 2, just as bad as termites, fungus or dry rot. This is the pedestrian door. This is the garage door, I believe. Is that very common? How many times have you gone to a house, maybe you're walking around the outside, or maybe you go through the garage and you go through the door from the garage to the outside of the house, and the door is just what? It's beaten. Okay? It's been rained on, the dog's been peeing on it, or sprinklers have been spraying on it. The door, well, the door just doesn't disintegrate. It's got fungus and it's got dry rot. There's micro wood, just by the way, going back up. This is not called. Do you see anywhere on here where it says termite report? We all have gotten into the habit, myself included. Get a termite report. Well, it's not a termite report. It's a wood destroying pest and organism report. Wood destroying pest, termites. Is there other types of wood destroying pests? Yeah, carpenter ants. We don't have carpenter ants here. You go sell houses up in Big Bear, they don't have, well, they do have termite problems, but their bigger problem is not termites. Their bigger problem is carpenter ants. Those things are big and nasty, and they'll do twice as much damage as termites.
They're like fire ants or
They're
something?
just big ants, and they're mean and ugly, and they just eat wood. Okay? And they'll just go in there and just tear up your deck. Okay? Now, they're not termites, but they are a wood-destroying pest. Okay? So you get a carpenter ant, you got to take care of the carpenter ants. And those, frankly, those are really difficult. Those are actually harder to treat and get rid of than, and I'll tell you why.
Have you sold houses up in Big Bear?
Yeah.
You have?
Oh yeah. How do you think I know all this stuff? So, okay, let me give you my example. Let's treat this. Well, actually, let's go back and I'll show you my carpenter ant example. Okay, first of all, what are we going to do? Finding number 1, we have subterranean termites. What are we going to do? We're going to drill a series of holes through the slab, and we're going to pump in some chemicals. So, here's our termite nest. They've got evidence in this corner. They're going to drill some holes in here. They're going to probably dig a big hole over here, and they're going to pump in a bunch of chemicals, and they're basically going to poison this area. Right?
Mhm.
When they do that, the termites that have been coming up in this area now do what?
They die.
Well, these termites die. What about these guys down here? They don't die. I mean, they may send up a few people. I mean, I'm not that well versed in this. They may send up a few scouts, find out that the scouts are dying. They're not stupid, so then what do? Well, maybe they go this way, and they pop up over here, or hopefully they go this way and they pop up in your neighbor's house. Okay? But when they treat this, they are poisoning the ground between your house and the termites so that they can't get into one. Okay? Now, let's pretend these are drywood termites. Poisoning the ground, is that going to take care of these boys up here?
No.
This is where we put the tent over the house. If I put it, you gas the house, and by the way, that stuff works, okay? You gas the house, these guys are dead. What about these guys?
No.
There's no effect on them. As a matter of fact, I don't know if this is true or not, but let's pretend we know what we're talking about. These guys, hey, sounds like we're being tented. Let's get the hell out of here. Go back into the ground.
They haven't been around for
Maybe they
2,000
die.
years because they're
I don't know, but these guys down here definitely don't die. Okay, so the tenting will do nothing for subterranean termites. Okay, it will do everything to kill these. Now let's go back. Let me finish my thought, and then I'll
Okay.
answer your question. So, if I do have drywood termites, do you have to have a tent every time you find drywood termites? No, you don't. It really depends on the company you're going to deal with. A lot of times, if they find drywood termites, and the only place in the house they've seen them is on this fascia board, they will do what's called locally treat for drywood termites. So they will go up here, They will drill a whole bunch of holes in this area, and they will literally take an aerosol can and spray in a termite killer. What if they find drywood termites over here on this side? And what if they find them in this window jamb? And what if they find them in the door jamb? Can you do the same thing? Well, you can do the same thing. This is the problem with drywood termites. What if the only visible evidence of drywood termites was in this 4-foot section? And you just said, okay, I'm gonna drill some holes 2 feet on either side. Is it possible that they've tunneled their way over here and they're over here? If you don't drill and treat over here, are these guys dead?
You don't know.
They just keep on going. The only way to effectively eradicate all the drywood termites is to put the tent over the property. That will kill everything. If there's one hidden over here that they never saw, done. Okay. Normally, termite companies will do local treats if they find the termites in 1 or 2 spots. If they find them in 2, normal 1 spot for sure, but 2 spots, probably going to ask for a tent, maybe, maybe not. But if they find it in 3 spots, you're going to get tented every single time. Yep.
I mean, as far as dealing with your client, I mean, that's a pretty big job, right? That's going to cost $2,000-3,000 bucks.
Well, it depends on the size of the house. You know, they measure it
Let's say
based
a
on.
2,000 square foot house.
It's going to cost you probably $2 grand. But it also depends on if it's a 2-story or, you know, the square footage isn't as important as, you know, the height of the ceiling
Right.
and all the rest of that sort of stuff. It's
So
all
if
it's
it's a
done by
2-story house, it could cost more.
It's done by cubic feet. Yeah, yeah. But it's the only effective way to get rid of drywood termites. Only way. Okay. Now we're talking about the door. We got fungus or dry rot. That's fungus or dry rot's easy. This one says it's at the window box. I think this one says it's at the pedestrian door. You got to remove the wood. If you put a new door on. The window box is messed up. Well, pull the window box off. How much? You keep pulling it off until there's no more damaged wood. When you take the window, if you take off the first layer and it's clean, fine. You're good to go. When you take off the, oh geez, it's farther back. Well, take a little, oh geez, it's farther back. Well, you got to take it all out. 100% of the dry rot and fungus wood has to come out. Okay, I got one more termite inspection in here. Well, we went a lot longer than I thought. I apologize. Actually, I got 2 more inspections, but we're going to quickly go through these. Same, does this look similar to the other report we just saw? Different company's name, but the format is exactly the same, okay? We got 3 findings, 1, 2, 3. By the way, the other, if you notice, the other one was nicely drawn, looked like maybe a little computer program. This guy just drew his with a pencil and a ruler, okay? Okay, whatever, that's how I do it. Drywood termites, noted in the bedroom closet. Recommend drill and chemically treat, not fumigate. Now, if he had found 3 or 4 other places, he probably would have said, let's put a bag over it, let's fumigate. What else did we find? Water damage not under kitchen sink. Okay? Well, what do you got to do? Got to make sure the water's not leaking anymore and replace it. Okay? And fungus at the front beam, recommend the owner have it repaired. And water damage on a hot water heater closet and a door jamb. Again, remove and replace. There's one other thing, matter of fact, I'll show you on the next report. And then we'll... You done?
Yep.
Yeah, no, I'll take it. I'm almost done.
Man, you're a good teacher at the
I know.
NHD
Well-
and termite reports.
Oh yeah, we did home inspections too. We don't mess around. We've got our map over here on how to...
So now they're all not going to advise their client to do a home inspection? They're gonna do
No,
a
I've
fucking-
said we all do home inspections. We all do home inspections. Okay, we got another report from Adu, Carnation Lane. There's one thing I wanted to show you, which I didn't show you before. And I should pull this up. I should pull this up on the contract. On the California Residential Purchase Agreement under the termite report, it says we're going to run the termite report. And then it says, please see the WPA, the Wood Destroying Pest Allocation Cost or Form, or whatever it happens to be. On the WPA, there's two sections. It says Section 1, termite correction to be paid for. Normally that's by the seller. Section 2, termite correction to be paid for by the buyer. Every time there's a finding, and I didn't point this out on the other reports, I might have to go back and look at another one. This is a Section 1 item. So when you have checked the box that the seller to pay for Section 1, who's paying for that? Seller. This is a Section 1 item. Seller. This is a section 1 item. Seller, is there any more? Ah. Section 2. Oh, there is no section 2. You can go find a different report. Darn it. I hope I have one here that has section 2. By the way, these are all laid out exactly the same. Can we put past it? Okay. I was going to say it's laid out exactly the same. This one doesn't say section 1. Oh, maybe it's up here.
Different.
Interior item.
Just tell the client not to get one.
Well, I just lied to you. My expectation with this report was going to say section 1 or section 2. It should say that. Hopefully this one does.
That's okay. Sign the waiver, please.
Okay, here we go again. This is a section 1 item. This is a section 1 item. Come on, give me a good example. There's no, okay. Let's pretend. Okay, classic. Here we go. This is a section 1 item. Anything that has active infestation of termites, carpenter ant. Oh, I wanted to give you my carpenter ant example one quick before I forget. Carpenter ants are really tough to kill. Why? Because carpenter ants don't come in from underground and come into the house, and they don't live in the wood. Where do they come in from? They're living over in this tree over here, and they just walk across the ground like a dog or a cat, and they just crawl up the side of the house and they come in. Can't tent them. You can't poison the ground. What are you going to do?
Set the tree on fire?
It's tough. Well, if you can find the nest, you need to get rid of them. Okay. Carpenter ants are a pain in the butt. Okay.
Yeah.
Getting back to my section 1, section 2 example, then we're going to call it a day. Active termites, section 1. Active fungus dry rot, section 1. Active carpenter ants, section 1. Section 2. There is a water leak underneath the kitchen sink, but there's no damage. There's no fungus. It just happened. Okay? The 2 minutes before the termite guy got there, he's looking under the sink. It looks good. The wife comes over, turns on the sink, and just as the termite guy's ready to close the door, he sees what is the very first drop of water that comes out of the trap. Termite guy will say there is a water leak underneath the kitchen sink. It is a section 2 item, because if it's not fixed, that water leak will lead to dry rot and fungus underneath the kitchen sink. Okay? So, if that's your example of a section 2 on this, now again, forget about the fact that it's a plumbing leak and there may be somewhere else in the contract that says the seller's not supposed to, or is supposed to fix plumbing leaks. But if there's not a current infestation because of the problem, that's section 2. Okay? Another example of that would be, let's suppose there is a wood deck built off the back of the property, and the wood deck is sitting on the ground instead of on concrete blocks. It's just sitting on the ground. But there's no evidence of termites. Okay? It's rock solid. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's sitting on the ground. Where do the termites live?
In the tree. Oh, no.
In the tree. They could live in the tree too. They're in the ground. The wood is literally sitting on the ground. That's just a highway right into the house or into the deck. But there are no termites. The recommendation would be the wood deck is laying directly on the ground. Recommendation would be to dig the dirt underneath, put in some pillars, and get it off of the ground. No current evidence, however. That would be a section 2 finding. Who would pay for that? Buyer. Okay? Now there's a dozen different examples that you can use. The most common one that I always run into is on the side of the house. There's a gate here, and there's that 4x4 that's kind of the anchor for the side of the gate, and the 4x4 is literally right up against the side of the house, and it goes straight into the ground. The 4x4 is as solid as can be. Okay, there's no termites in it. But again, remember my example. Here those termites are. Hey, I found a little 4x4 here. I think I'm going to come up. Oh, now I got a little wood siding. I'm going to go right into the house. There's no current evidence of termites, but left uncorrected, that is a condition that could lead to termites. That would be section 1 or section 2?
Section 2.
Section 2. Okay. So, and that's important, because honestly, I bet most of the agents in this room who are not in this training class have no idea what the difference between Section 1 and Section 2 is. They're just told by a manager at some point, buyer pays for Section, or seller pays Section 1, buyer pays Section 2, and they don't even know what the heck the difference is. Okay? So, at any rate, that's, boy, I went a lot longer than I expected, guys. So thanks for your patience. Anybody got any questions before we call it?
Good.
Nothing?
Thank you.
Thank
You are welcome as always.